Smartphone companies are always trying to find new ways to innovate, but they may have taken things too far. These smartphones are pretty unreal. Here are 10 smartphones you won't believe actually exist. Number 10. Triple Display Phone. TCL's Triple Display Foldable Phone, codenamed the Dragon Hinge, is a 10-inch tablet with a large plastic display when used wide open. You can also fold it so that only two screens are open, with the unused portion either tucked away or used to prop up the rest of the device, supposedly making it an ideal device to use for consuming media, like movies and television, without a case or wall to prop it up to the right viewing angle. The TCL can also be used in a single screen configuration for a more traditional phone-like experience. It's divided into 3 segments, each containing a 6.65-inch display and its own battery. As you can imagine, when you fold all 3 layers down, it's incredibly thick. Unsurprisingly, it feels as if you had 3 phones stacked on top of each other. There's no firm release date for this phone, so the question of when or even if you'll actually be able to buy any of these devices remains unanswered. The company did promise that some kind of foldable device will arrive by 2021. However, it's unconfirmed if the coronavirus has delayed their original production promise. The hinges and separate batteries pose heat, durability, and operational life expectancy challenges to TCL and other folding phone makers, but it's still exciting to see innovation in the phone market in 2020. Number 9. Lenovo C Plus. Although smartwatches linked to more powerful phones have seen an increase in popularity as companies like Apple and Samsung battle for market share, the idea of a completely wearable watch still persists, and a handful are being developed. One example is the Lenovo C Plus. The flexible Android smartphone concept is just like a dream come true for many Android fans. The bendable phone that comes in with a flexible form factor such that it can be wrapped around the wrist. The C Plus runs a customized version of Android and features an embedded SIM card, along with a wrist micro motion trigger camera that can take photos and record video while in wearable mode. The Lenovo C Plus was plagued with problems from the start though. In a demonstration with tech website Engadget showed that the phone screen cracked and malfunctioned when bent around the wrist. The C Plus was first seen in 2016 at the Tech World conference. While it has yet to be released, it's likely that it inspired a lot of the technology found in the Lenovo Yoga, a laptop-tablet hybrid with a flexible hinge, allowing the keyboard to operate as an input device when used as a laptop, or a stand when the Yoga was used in tablet mode. Number 8. Zenfone AR. The Zenfone AR's priority is augmented and virtual reality, making use of software called Tango and Google Daydream. Tango is a set of sensors and computer vision software that gives Zenfone AR the ability to understand space and motion like humans do, which gives Zenfone AR augmented reality capabilities that feel positively futuristic. Tango adds motion tracking, depth perception, and area learning capabilities to Zenfone AR, so it can understand its motion as it moves through an area, detect how far away it is from the floor, walls, and objects, and see and remember the key visual features of a physical space in 3-dimensional space. As with most new premium phones releasing these days, Zenfone AR has 3 rear cameras. One's priority is motion tracking, one handles depth sensing, and one is a standard high-resolution 23-megapixel camera. This allows the Zenfone AR to create a 3-dimensional model of its surroundings and track its motion. The motion tracking camera lets Zenfone AR track its location as it moves through space. The depth sensing camera with an infrared IR projector lets Zenfone AR measure its distance from real-world objects. While AR and VR may not be the most popular medium for everyday use, its niche strengths are what make the platform so enticing to new players in the cellular market. Number 7. Motorola V70. In 2002, Motorola introduced the V70, the IT phone before the phone maker's huge worldwide splash with the Razr. The V70 phone's innovative shape, featuring a round display and rotating cover, marked Motorola's renewed focus on consumer experience design. The cover was plastic and rotated 360 degrees to allow the user to configure the phone the way they want when they took calls. The V70 was also customizable. The circular silver bezel that frames the then unique white-on-black screen was interchangeable with gold, silver, or white accessories. It was also one of the first phones to be popular to carry outside of a pocket or purse. Available matching lanyards meant you could carry it around your neck by inserting a lanyard, such as the one made by Gucci, into the hole at the top of the phone. For an early smartphone, it was packed with useful features and bells and whistles that were still a novelty at the time. Features such as a calendar, a currency converter, a calculator, voice-activated dialing, 64 ringtones, 32 of which are customizable, vibrate mode, two-way SMS, caller ID, conference calling, 3 games, blackjack, mind blaster, and paddleball, wireless web access, and the ability to sync PIM contacts with the phone via TrueSync software. Number 6. Nokia 7600. The Nokia 7600 was and will always be distinctive. With its teardrop shape, the phone was primarily aimed at the fashion market, similarly to the Motorola V70. It also had user-swappable front covers to suit the user's color preference. The number keys were located around the large screen in a large circle and was notoriously criticized for requiring both hands or a tabletop in order to make a call or send a text. One notable feature aside from its distinct look was the VGA camera, which was high-end when the phone debuted. Back then, the next-gen features kept going on the 7600. It had polyphonic ringtone support. The built-in MP3 AAC audio player allows up to 29 megabytes of songs to be transferred to the handset using Bluetooth, infrared, or a USB connection through its POP port. The 7600 had a talk time of nearly 3 hours using a 3G connection. Another impressive feature well ahead of its time, standby time is up to 12.5 days. While the 7600 ultimately was not a successful model for Nokia at the time, some of the tech inside it pushed the industry further. That appreciation is shown in the second-hand market, where the rare these days 7600 is quite valuable to vintage cell phone collectors. Before we move on, be sure to subscribe to Daily Top 10s with notifications on so you don't miss any of our videos. Number 5. Samsung Serene. Samsung teamed up with Bang & Olufsen to produce a mobile phone that harked back in its look, and in doing so, somehow made the clamshell phone look futuristic. Bang & Olufsen's design language was all over the phone's sleek casing, aluminum clasp, and the timeless 80s tape deck opening mechanism, which opens to reveal an upside-down design. The handset was designed so that the screen is at the bottom of the phone during standard use, and the keypad is on the half that flips out. This was for 2 reasons. It stops the phone from getting greasy when you talk, and it also improves the weight balance while holding the phone. The handset also inverts so its user can hold the phone up the other way if they want. This made the handset look like some sort of new-age rotary phone, the kind you might find at your grandparents' house if they still haven't switched to cordless. Using the handset for making calls is a simple enough affair with an iPod-style click wheel for menu selection, but texters will have to endure a workout of their fingers for anything longer than one-liners. There's no QWERTY keyboard to be found here. Number 4. Monome Runcible. The only commercial phone we've seen that wouldn't look out of place being worn as a pocket watch. The Monome Runcible is without a doubt the strangest design in a phone we've seen yet. The Runcible is not only supposed to look different from every smartphone on the market, but you're supposed to interact with it in a completely different way. For one, Monome wants you to use it less. In fact, the company's press materials even go so far as to call it the anti-smartphone. Instead of a barrage of notifications as and when they happen, the Runcible will deliver streams of information tailored to you when the software deems it relevant. It can't use the Google Play Store because the screen is round, and no apps are built for round screens. The GPS first suggests scenic routes. This phone is for a person who is in absolutely no rush at all to do anything. It almost seems like a company ethos during its development. First, Monome built the Runcible's entire software experience on the Firefox OS platform, a philosophical choice meant to keep the device open to tinkerers. That involved finding a processor that would play nicely with Firefox OS. But not long after that, the manufacturer killed production of that particular chip, hanging Monome out to dry. Firefox OS was killed off by Mozilla a short time after. Still, despite the difficulties, the Runcible did make it to pre-production with a barrage of orders via crowdsourcing platform Indiegogo. Number 3. Haier P7 Pen Phone. Is there anybody who wants a phone that has the capabilities of writing on paper? Keep waiting, but the Haier Pen Phone at least looks like a working writing instrument. It can, however, be used to make calls, send texts, and do anything that a standard cell phone does. While the phone's unique shape give it a distinctive look, it does pose some challenges to Haier to make a fully functioning phone in an oddly shaped package, such as adding tiny buttons that remain pushable, a microscopic screen that remained legible, and an earpiece and microphone that didn't make the audio tinny on either end. Haier managed to get the kinks out and even claimed the phone was capable of 3 hours talk time or 120 hours standby time, with a 128 by 64 pixel 65K color display. That would be pretty impressive for an actual pen, but nothing to be amazed by compared to its counterparts at the time in 2004. What it did have that was interesting was a USB interface, mostly used to upload and download photos taken in VGA quality. Now that's impressive for something shaped like a common pen. Number 2. Nokia 7280. Nokia's ultra-thin phone was dubbed the lipstick phone and was aimed at fashion-forward and young consumers. It had a screen that also worked as a mirror that was admittedly tiny, but still a quirky and memorable feature all these years later. Perfect to whip out at cocktails, the Nokia 7280 is geared to attract attention and become the talking point at any high-glamour soiree, Nokia said in a press release at a time. There was no keypad, but instead Nokia put a dial on the phone for people to navigate. The phone had a mix of plastic, metal, leather, and even a piece of fabric. In fact, the Nokia logo stuck out of the phone on a piece of fabric, something similar to what we see on t-shirts today. It didn't have a physical keypad. Instead, you had to use a physical scroll button, which is similar to the Apple iPod's click wheel, to navigate an on-screen keypad to type in phone numbers or texts. It also supported voice input. It doesn't look like it, but the phone had a camera on the device as well. All you had to do was slide it open and snap a photo. Before we move on to number 1, we have a couple quick honorable mentions that didn't make the list. Honorable mention 1. The Nintendo Plus. A concept phone that never made it to store shelves, the Nintendo Plus was designed as an Android 6.0 Marshmallow-based phone powered by a Qualcomm Snapdragon 820 processor, plus a 5.1-inch Full HD screen with an AMOLED panel. Great specs! But the real selling point of the phone was the idea to incorporate native emulators of famous Nintendo consoles, from the NES and SNES to the GameCube, DS, and Game Boy Advance. There's a kick slider and rotating opening mechanism in the mix that lets the screen slide up and around as you need it. Gaming-centric phones have come and gone before, such as the infamously terrible at gaming and being a phone Nokia N-Gage. The failing of that one was its strange shape and bad button layout that was supposed to be suited for gaming, but was too cramped with a screen too low resolution and small. Let us know in the comments below if you think Nintendo could get this balance right. Honorable mention 2. The Motorola Backflip. Throughout history, phones have done every sort of flip in the book. They're now on to folding outwards, but the Motorola Backflip was the granddaddy of the idea. There was no shortage of phones with sliding keyboards back in 2010, but Motorola decided to be quirky with the backflip. As its name suggests, the back flips around to reveal a physical keyboard. The design itself wasn't incredibly functional, as the keyboard was vulnerable to damage when the phone was open, and completely inaccessible when closed. The back of the screen had something called Backtrack, which was an extremely inaccurate and unreliable trackpad without much use built into the phone's operating system. Despite its articulating design, the phone's operating system was a bit more inflexible than to which most Android users were accustomed. It had no access to installing applications outside of the official Android app market. The Backflip, released in 2010, was a bit underpowered for its time as well. It had a measly 528 MHz processor, the same as 2008's T-Mobile G1, 256 MB of RAM, and 512 MB of storage. Its 3.1-inch 320-pixel screen and 5-megapixel camera was also behind the times as well. Number 1. Project Ara. Project Ara was a concept phone designed to be entirely modular, meaning the user picks and chooses parts for the phone as they need, which snap onto the back of the device. Want a better camera? Upgrade it. New battery? No need to take off the cover to change it or upgrade it. Maybe speakers on the back? You get the picture. Formerly developed by Google, the project was originally headed by the Advanced Technology and Projects team within Motorola Mobility, while it was a Google subsidiary. The first version of the developer's kit relied on a prototype implementation of the Ara on-device network that ran using a low-voltage differential signaling (LVDS) physical layer, with modules connecting via retractable pins. A near-working prototype of an Ara smartphone was demonstrated at Google I/O 2014, but it froze on the boot screen. Many troubles, toils, and snares in its development later, Google announced that the Ara was no longer in development by the time 2016 rolled around. At that point, the modular idea was scrapped anyway, so the main differentiator of the Ara was no longer going to be a selling point. Be